Hey everyone, we are going to start in about a minute. We are just waiting for everyone to join and then we'll start. Okay, cool. Um, Hi everyone, are you guys able to hear me? Just drop a quick yes or no in the chat, everyone. Am I audible, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Hi everyone. Okay. Hello, Kaustubh. How are you? How are you doing? Doing good? Okay, cool. So, in the last class, we discussed a lot and we were talking about composition, right? So, we'll continue our discussion from there. Can everybody see my shared screen? Just give me a minute, please. Okay. So, yes, we have to start with many to one. Sorry, many to many. Okay, cool. So I'll just take a quick look where we left. So we have a bunch of models with us. We have a booking model, driver model, passenger review, review model. Okay. So many to many, we have to see. Okay. And we just think, I was thinking what can be a good example. Okay. So just give me a second. Any questions with respect to one-to-one and many one-to-many relationships, guys? Any questions around that? Anyone with any questions that you guys want to ask? Nothing, all good? All good, guys? Okay, cool. So now we have to start with a many-to-many relationship. Okay, so just 1 second. Okay, cancel. Let's disconnect this. Okay. Now, what we're going to talk about is many-to-many relationships. Okay. Now we saw that in one-to-one relationship, if let's say there is a one-to-one relationship between an entity A and an entity B, then primary key of one entity is stored in the other entity. Like primary key of A can be stored in B, or primary key of B is stored in A. If there is a one-to-many relationship between A and B, that A has many B, right? Then in the table of B, you store the primary key of A, right? In the table of B, you store the primary key of A. But in case of many-to-many relationships, things start changing a bit. Things actually start changing a bit. How exactly do they change? Now, what happens in a many-to-many relationship is that, let's think about an example like this. So let's say you are building a hospital management application. Okay. So you can say that doctor has many patients, right? A doctor can have many patients, and patient belongs to many doctors. Just think about it. In a hospital, let's say there is a doctor who is a neurosurgeon. Then that particular doctor will be having a lot of patients altogether. And then one patient can be diagnosed with multiple diseases. So they also have to probably consult with more than one doctors. So at any point of time, if you will carefully see, then what you will realize is that at any point of time, there will be a many-to-many relationship between doctors and patients. There will be a many-to-many relationship between a doctor and patients, right? Because a doctor will be having many patients and a patient will be having many doctors. I hope this point is making sense to everybody. Okay. Now, the thing is, how can we actually represent this many-to-many relationship inside our relational tables, right? That is something that we have to keep in mind. Okay. That is something that we have to think about. So generally, for a many-to-many relationship, in order to set up a many-to-many relationship, first of all, what are the two main entities here? One main entity is a doctor. One main entity you can say is definitely a doctor, right? And another main entity that you have is a patient. So there are two main entities. So definitely there will be two tables. One will be a doctor table, where you will be having probably a doctor ID, name of the doctor, and so on. Then you will be having a patient table, where you will be having a patient ID, name of the patient, and so on. And then apart from the two main tables, you have a third table. That you need to bring into the place. This third table is also called as join table. Okay. Or sometimes this is also called as through table. Now, what is this through table? Now, just think about it. A doctor is going to be associated to many patients. A patient is going to be associated to many doctors, right? But these association is going to happen via something. They're going to be interlinked via something. So we will say that a doctor has many patients. Through appointments. And patient has many doctors through appointments. Can I say that? Both of them are related through appointments. So there will be a third table which will act as our through table, appointments. Inside appointments, you can have details of the appointment, like time of the appointment and everything, some details. But apart from that, two main crucial entities will be there. That is, the appointment is between which doctor and which patient. So there will be a doctor ID and there will be a corresponding patient ID, right? This is something very crucial. This is something very crucial. So generally in many to many relationship, you have to maintain a third table. In that third table is technically called as through table or join table, right? And inside this third table, you have primary keys of both the main tables altogether. What are the main tables we have here? Doctor and patient. So in this through table or this join table, we will be having ID association of both of these doctor and patient. And here in this through table, the every particular row will be uniquely identified by the pair of doctor ID and patient ID. Just think about it. Let's say there is a patient with ID 1 named Sanket. There is a patient with ID 2 named Sarthak. Then there is a doctor with ID 1, Anand. There is a doctor with ID 2, Anurag. Okay. Now there can be a case that Sarthak has appointment with both of them. So Sarthak has one appointment with Dr. Anand and Sarthak has one appointment with Dr. Anurag. And let's say Sanket has one appointment with Dr. Anurag. So now you can see one doctor can have many patients, right? For example, Dr. Anurag has Sarthak and Sanket, both has the patient. And one patient like Sarthak will be having multiple doctors as well. So this through table actually helps us to maintain kind of like a many to many relationship altogether. How many of you guys are able to get this point? Drop a quick yes or no in the chat. Okay, so why generally what will be the first column of appointment table? If you want, you can have a separate primary key of an appointment as an appointment ID also, Akash. But still, the pair of doctor ID and patient ID will be always unique in a particular row. Right. Now, if let's say there can be a case that there can be multiple appointments between a patient and a doctor. In that case, you will need an appointment ID then. Again, the more complexity you introduce, more things you might have to do there. Any more questions, guys? So if you will go to documentation of Ruby on Rails, I always show this documentation, many to many relation. Okay, I know this is not related to Spring, but they have a very good documentation around this. Okay, just a second. Cool. So now, if you see here, they actually give you some detailed explanation around one to many, many to one, many to many kind of a relationship. If you will scroll down, then you can see physicians has a lot of patients. Patient belongs to multiple physicians through appointments. Are you able to get this point? Rachel, I was uploading the notes. If you want, I'll keep on uploading the notes. In the previous few lectures, I was uploading the notes. So if you want, I can still keep on uploading the notes. Getting my point, guys? Guys, are you able to understand what is a many-to-many relationship? Okay, just allow me a minute, guys. Cool. Now, if you go here, So if you will search for Spring Data JPA, many to many relationship. Okay, you can see many to many relationship in Spring Data JPA. Okay, here we go. Now, all you have to do is, if you want to define a many to many relationship, you can see a student has many courses and a course can belong to multiple students. Can I say that? Okay. And then what you can do is, in the student class, you can have many to many association with the courses like this. Okay. This can have your many to many association. You can just use @many to many. A student has many courses. A course belongs to multiple. A course will be having many students. Okay. And then apart from the @many to many annotation, you have to give one more annotation @join table. Here you mention what is the name of the table and what are the join columns. For example, in our case here, the join column will be doctor ID and the other join column will be patient ID. Right? As simple as that. Right? So that is something that you are expected to do. That is something that you are expected to do. How many of you guys are able to get this point? Okay. Now you tell me, inside our Uber application, do you see a many to many relationship anywhere? Satvik, I'll show you. I'll show you. Ruko, एक एक करके देखते हैं. Guys, do you see any many to many relationship in our Uber application? Driver and passengers. Okay. How? Yes. So currently in our application, if you carefully see this booking table is technically having your driver, passengers, and everything, right? But technically, this is also helping us to connect passengers and drivers as well, because a driver can take many passengers, and a passenger can be going with many driver, right? Via booking. So technically, if you see our current setup, then between booking and driver, there is a many to one relationship, or driver and booking, there is one to many relationship. Between passenger and booking, there is a one to many relationship. But because of this, now between a driver and a passenger, there is a many to many relationship that has been set up as well, right? Are you able to get this point? And here, this booking table is going to act as our through table already. This booking table is going to act as our through table already. Yes or no? So here booking table is already our through table. So technically you don't need to make much more of an effort in order to actually make some associations. But let's say this is like one of case where while setting up one to many relationship, you were able to set up the many to many as well. Any other many to many relationship that you can think of? Any other many to many relationship you can think of, guys? Anyone? Any other many to many relationship that you can think of? Guys, think about it. Any other many to many relationship? When we search for right, multiple rights are available for drivers to select. But how do you set up a relationship here? Anybody else with anything else? Any other many-to-many relationship that you can think of? Think about Uber. Overall, think about Uber. Any many-to-many relationship you can think of. Uber and customer care. Okay, how will that happen? Sorry, user and customer care. So what will be the relationship? If we consider an address table, a user table, there is many to many. How, like you are saying, on one address there will be multiple users, and one user has multiple addresses. I don't think like one address has multiple users is a use case. Like uh generally address is like not any identifier for the user, right? One user can be talking to many customer care, and one customer can be serving many users. Okay. Okay. So in that case, we might have to create one more kind of like user entity that is a customer care, right? Yes or no? Okay. Anything else? Anything else, guys? Passenger can have multiple bookings and same goes to the driver. That we already have, no? Now we already have that passenger and driver are now related via bookings. We don't need to associate them once more again with respect to one more table. Like they are already associated with respect to booking as a through table, Akash, right? Don't you think? Can I say that? Passenger and payment type be many to many. Like how will you set it up? Think about it, guys. Any other relationship? Any other relationship? A passenger can have many payment types, and a payment type can be referred by many users. But okay, so you are saying for that, then in that case, we have to set up a whole payment entity altogether, right? Don't you think? In that case, we might have to set up a whole payment entity altogether. But again, that will go out of the scope of the app, I believe. Handling like what we said, we are going to just make it we'll just let it get handled by the payment gateway, isn't it? Rating mechanism. Multiple passengers can have rating to driver, and multiple drivers can rate. Again, as I mentioned already, driver and passengers are now already associated with booking, right? Customer can ride in many cities. Very good. I wanted to think about it. Like one good association can be that one customer is going to many cities, and in one city there can be many customers. That can be a good association. Or in fact, generally, there is something called as a car permit, right? So in one city, there can be many cars which are actually permitted, and one car can have permit of more than one cities. For example, a Bharat number plate car will be having a permit of more than one city. Can I say that? Yes, very good, Satvik. Now, Satvik has also shared an interesting one. If somehow we introduce a pooling mechanism, that it's a pool ride, it's not a normal booking, it's a pool booking, then in one booking, there will be more than one users. And one user already has multiple bookings. So now two users can be now associated also in many-to-many relationship. Can you see how many different type of many-to-many relationships are now coming into the picture, guys? Isn't it? And we don't want to force it. We generally do not want to force it at any point of time. If we actually see that there is a many-to-many kind of a situation coming up, we should try to imply to that. Are you able to get this point? Are you able to get this point, guys? Okay. So, let's maybe go with that car thing. Okay. So let's go with the situation where one car might be registered in multiple cities, and one city will be having a lot of cars registered. So that for any time at point, like why this feature will be useful for us at any point of time, if you want to see that, let's say, whether this car is allowed to go from this particular location from this particular to the other location or not. You can check the final location, what is the city of that location, and whether that car is permitted to go to that particular city or not. Okay. And similarly, you can say that in one city, if you want to get all of the available cars that are registered for that particular city, you can again get that. Right. This is something that you can like pretty easily set it up. One more thing that you can do, let's say, for example, if you want to store the payment gateway information instead of setting up the whole payment ourselves, maybe you want to set up a payment gateway information. So one user, or let's say instead of payment gateway, you can have payment mode, although we are not going to integrate payment mode because maybe we just want payment gateway to separately handle it. But what we can say is that one user can have multiple payment modes, and one payment mode might be belonging to multiple users altogether. Make sense, everyone? Yes, chat can also be a very good example. Guys, chat can also be a pretty good example. Can I say that? One more example that you can think about is a chat. That one chat, like a user can be chatting with many other users, and other side user can also have many other users to chat. But a simple, I would say, implementation for a many-to-many relationship can be kind of like roles as well, right? For example, currently in your available application, right? What we can have is we can have maybe multiple roles for a particular user. Okay. Let's say, for example, if you are a passenger, then maybe you are not just a normal passenger. Maybe you are a premium user, premium passenger you are. Okay. Or maybe you are a luxury passenger, like maybe you have tier of passengers based on your subscription model or something, right? Then let's say even for drivers, you can have different type of drivers available, so on and so forth. So these types can exist. But then what you can think is that, okay, sir, if you want to have different passenger types, why not just keep an enum? Yeah, that makes sense. We can actually keep an enum. But later, what we are going to do is we are going to actually do something called as authorization. We are going to do something called as authorization. What is authorization? In authorization, what you have is, if let's say you have a user entity, you define a set of roles that are allocated to a particular user. And this particular user will be only allowed to do these particular set of roles. No other particular set of roles are going to be allowed to be done by this particular user. Are you able to get this point? Okay. So in that case, what you can actually do is you can actually set up roles. Now, how the roles can be there? For example, there can be an admin role, right? There can be a admin role. And what we can actually do is we already have a passenger. We already have a passenger class. We already have a driver class. Now just think about it. Both passenger and driver are going to have an account, right? Both passenger and driver can have an account, because in order to sign up as a passenger or in order to sign up as a driver, for both of the cases, we will need the email ID, password, and the phone number. For both of these cases, we will need an email ID and a password and a phone number, right? So what we can actually have is every passenger and every driver will be having an account entity, right? In this account entity, we can make another entity, account entity, where we can actually store the email, password, and phone number of the particular set of passengers and drivers, because both of them are going to have all of these entities common. Both of them have all of these entity common, right? Now you might be thinking that, okay, why not create account as a base class and inherit passenger and driver from them, right? You can have account as a base class and then maybe inherit passenger and driver from them, right? In that case, what will happen is you can actually do a mapped superclass. You can do a mapped superclass with respect to account, and then passenger will be having its own email ID and password. Driver will be having its own email ID and password in the corresponding table, right? So there can be multiple strategies that you can pick in order to set up a, or like look at scenarios where you need a many-to-many relationship altogether. Are you guys able to get this point? Like, what are different scenarios in our application where you can actually set up a many-to-many relationship altogether? Yes, one more thing is like driver can also be like, now here there can be an argument that instead of doing an inheritance, composition should be better. Why? Because a driver can also be a passenger sometime, right? So having an account as a property inside driver and passenger, where you can keep email ID, password, phone number, and maybe roles, that can be suitable. So again, different arguments can be kept based on what kind of application you are building. Are you able to get this point, guys? Is this point making sense? Drop a quick yes or no in the chat. Okay, so we still have time, and just give me a second. Okay, we still have time to set up a maybe a many-to-many relationship, right? But okay, what happened? Oh, sorry. But setting it up is not going to be that difficult. We can just use the @ many-to-many kind of a annotation, and that should be more or less good. For demonstration purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, apart from these entities which are kind of like related to each other, I'm going to make a separate 2-3 entities that we can just play around with, and then we are going to delete it, because to set up those entities in our application, we still have to like write a few more features so that it can actually make sense. Otherwise, it will look forced. So to just practice our many-to-many relationship, like apart from this Uber app, what I'm going to do is, I'll create a brand new class, student. Okay. And I'll create a brand new class, course. Okay. Now, I'll give both of them these set of annotations. So I'll copy this and paste it here and paste it here. Okay. And here also I'll say extends base model. And here also I will say extends extends base model. Okay, cool. Now let's add some very simple properties for our student. For example, you can say private string name of the student, private string roll number of the student. Okay. And then we can say private list of courses, and we will call it as courses is equals to new array list. Okay. Now you can see what will happen is here you can add a private string name, course name. Okay. Now a student can has many courses, and again a course can have many students as well. So I'll say private list of student. Okay. And I'll say students is equals to new array list. Here we go. Now if you will try to compile the application, or let's say build the application, it should technically throw an error. And I believe everybody should know why. Because now we are trying to do a composition with not any simple primitive or a regular non-primitive. We are trying to actually associate an entity here. Okay. So you can see it's building up. Let's wait for a minute. You can see this is going to fail. Why this is going to fail? Because you have not told what type of association this is. So I will say that between student and courses, there is a many-to-many association. And here also I'll mention @ many-to-many association altogether. Okay. Cool. The moment you do many-to-many, what you have to do is you have to actually define a join table. Okay. In this join table property, you can see you have to give a bunch of action items that this is going to actually pick in order to make sure that whatever entities you are mentioning for the many-to-many relationship has all the related properties. And the most important related property is going to be what? It's going to be the through table. Okay. So if you go here and search for many-to-many relation, JPA. Okay. And if you come up here, you can see, first of all, we have to give the name of the join table. So what we are going to give the name of the join table. So I'll say name of the join table will be course students. Okay. Course students will be the name of the join table. Then you have to give two columns. First is the join column, and then second is the inverse join column. Join column will be the property for the student, that what property from the student table you want to put in the course students table. So I'll say, let's put a comma here, join column, and inside join column, you can say @ you can give a annotation @ join column. Okay. @ join column. So now here mention what property from the student table you want to put in the join table. So I'll say I want to put the student ID. From here we'll put the student ID. Okay. So we'll say student ID. And let's put a comma here. And just a second. Okay, I guess we should just say ID, right? Join columns or column. My bad. Join columns @ join. Oh, so this should be name is equals to student. Name is equals to student. Okay. And then what do you give is inverse join columns. Inverse join column means now what property from the course table you want to actually bring in here. You will say name is equals to course ID. Course ID. If you actually run this program, And in one side, any one side, like for example, in the student side, I have defined. So any one side, you can define the join table configuration. Okay. Now, can you see? It has created 3 tables: course table, student table, and course student table. Can I say that? In the course student table, it has kept student ID and course ID as the 2 set of properties, right? And here you can see it has added a foreign key constraint on the student ID as well. See, it has added a foreign key constraint and a foreign key constraint on the course ID as well, right? So this is how join columns or join tables are actually going to work, right? So this is a simple example using which you can actually demonstrate many-to-many relationship. And again, post that, what you will be doing is you will be actually doing a bunch of queries here and there and try to sort things out. Make sense, guys? Now do you understand how exactly join tables are working? Yes, Kaustubh. So by default, primary key of both of these tables, student table and course table, will be allocated in the student ID and the course ID. Okay. Any questions from anyone? Okay. So I'll just delete this. This was for just for demonstration purpose. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these tables. So first of all, let's delete course students, drop. Then let's drop the course table. And then let's drop the student table. Here we go. It will automatically pick ID. Dhruv is saying, why didn't we just say ID? Because ID property in student table, if you will just say ID, like there are 2 columns ID, what is the meaning of that? In that other table, my primary key will be referred as the student ID. It's like that. Yes, Pawan. So inside your through table, you have primary keys of both the other tables present as a foreign key here. Pawan, you can see that. Okay. So I'll delete this. Delete anyway. And inside student also I'll delete. One quick question, and let's see how many of you are able to think. Just one quick question that I have in my mind, that let's say you have, let's say, a doctor entity and a patient entity, right? You want a through table appointments. One way is that in doctor, you have a list of patients and you write @many to many, and you mention the join table. But let's say in the join table, you want to have more properties. Apart from just these 2 foreign keys, you want to have more properties. What can you do in that case? I believe you can define this table as your join table, no problem. But to define the properties of this join table, you can set up a separate class altogether. So you can have a separate entity class, calling it as appointments. There you will be having doctor ID, patient ID, and other properties also mentioned. So I would recommend, what I would recommend you to guys to do is try to experiment. Try to maybe make a very small application, right? One quick homework that I would like to give you is a very simple CRUD application that you can try to make is kind of like a Quora clone. Quora clone backend. Simple Quora clone. Why Quora clone? Because in Quora, you have users, simple users you have. A user can post a question. So you can say a question belongs to a user and a user has many questions. So between user and question, there is a one-to-many relationship. But on a question, users can answer. User can answer questions. Now just think about it. A user can answer many questions and a question can have answers of a many users. Can I say that? So this is now a many-to-many relationship between users and answers, right? Okay. Something like this. Same thing for like. A user can like a question and a question can be liked by many users. Or sorry, user can like many questions. In fact, user can like many questions and a question can be liked by many users. So again, a many-to-many relationship is going to be existing. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to set up a dedicated Quora clone backend because now you know how to set up a REST API. Now you know how to do basic CRUD operation like find by ID, find all, delete by ID, all of that using JPA repositories. And you know how to set up relationship in composition and how to set up entity classes, right? Think about how you can make this Quora clone. You have full liberty of thinking as much beyond as possible. It's not going to be an effort of more than 4 or 5 hours. Very small, I would say, mini project. It will be there. If you will ask me, when I was learning backend development back in 2017, then I also made similar kind of an application. The entities that I kept was a user entity, a question entity, an answer entity, then a comment entity, because answer can have a comment can have a comment. Think about it. An answer can have a comment can have a comment. Then there was a like entity, that user can like many answers or user can like many comments. A comment can be liked by many users, something like that. Okay. And then user can also follow each other. So there was a follow table also that I prepared, right? So user can follow many users and one user can be followed by many users. So there was a follow through table that I prepared. So there were a bunch of tables that I was playing with. But again, it's your liberty. It's your thought process. What I want you to do is I want you to make a dedicated Quora backend. A user, like, by making your API calls, you should be able to post a question. You should be able to create an answer to that question. Multiple people should be able to answer one question. Multiple people should be able to comment on an answer or comment on a comment. People should be able to like a question, or people should be able to like an answer, right? People should be able to follow other users. And if you will carefully see, you can call it as a Quora clone, or you can call it as a Twitter clone. If you carefully see, in Twitter also, almost same thing happens. It's just that in Twitter, you do not have question, answer, and comment. You just have a tweet and a comment. So any one of the two you can pick. If you want to make a Twitter clone backend, you can do that. If you want to make a Quora clone backend, you can actually do that. Anything should be good for you. Are you guys able to get this point? Okay. Why I'm giving you this exercise? Because I want that once you are completed with this course, you have multiple more projects. Now, apart from just me coding the projects in front of you, you should be able to do it. So one payment wallet app you have to already code, but I want, like, if there is some college students, their resume will also fill up. And trust me, I also made a Quora backend. I can in fact show you, but it was not in Spring, it was in Ruby on Rails. I'll show you. In fact, you guys can work in a team as well. I don't have a problem. Maybe you can make a pair, like you can just discuss on Discord, and you can make one pair, like pair of two people, and then collaborate together so that you can maintain a common Git repository and then upload your code there, and you will be able to understand the overall, I would say, code build-up mechanism as well. So I'll show you. I also build a similar app, and trust me, to understand relationships, nothing is better than Quora. Nothing is better than Quora. You can see September 13, 2017. And I made it before September 13 because when I made it, I didn't know what is Git. So I used to keep it on my local machine. But when I learned about Git, I uploaded everything on Git. So you can see it's a Ruby on Rails app. If you go to the app and if you go to models, you can see there are a hell lot of models. I know. And I was in like what, third semester? Not even third semester. Like I completed my second semester when I built this app. So you can see there is a user. Again, these are all Ruby files. Then there is a question. You can see, right? You can see a question has many answers. A question belongs to a user. Just like how you have annotations in Spring Boot, we used to have these kind of key value pairs in Ruby on Rails. Then if you go to answer, you can see an answer belongs to a user. An answer also belongs to a question. Like if you see, user has many answers on a particular, on different questions, right? So one answer is not only just associated to a question, it is also associated to a user. Okay. Then you can see follow. There is a follow table. There was a, what do you say, like table as well. There was a like table as well. So multiple things I actually did. Multiple things I actually did. I'm not sure. I don't think this will set up now in my machine because it's like what, 7 years old. Ruby on Rails has changed a lot of things till now. But yeah, this app was like one full-fledged app that I prepared altogether. We will deploy it. Don't worry, Satvik. I have deployed it. Like in one class, I was explaining something. So on render, I have deployed it. For example, you can see a bunch of applications are deployed, right? So this CRM app has been deployed. I was teaching it somewhere. You can see if you will make a ping request. I'm not sure if if the server is still running or not. If you like use it after a long time, it restarts the server. So you can check the logs, what is coming in the logs. You can see now the logs are coming up, npm start, it's turning up. So what they do is they just try to cold boot your app again. If you don't use it for a long time, they don't keep it alive every time. And can you see? Okay, which changes slash ping is coming up. If you do slash API slash v1 slash tickets, maybe. Sorry, I forgot what is the route once again. Dhruv, what is the work timing? Can you tell me the work timing? Oh, I don't have it now. Once again. Once again, I'll show you a few APIs there. CD developer CR and backend. So this app is coded in TypeScript. And if you go to routes, v1 ticket routes slash tickets should be there. Cannot get API. Okay. One second. Let's slash users. Yeah, you can see it's saying unauthorized. So you can see APIs are going on. You can see it's unauthorized because I cannot access all the list of users because I have not signed in yet. So I have to probably sign in. For signing in, you have to make a post request. So that can only go by Postman. So you can see you can interact with your APIs like this. Okay. And like I'll upload a session on, or maybe Ria can take a session on Postman. In Postman, you can set up all of your, I would say, APIs, their request and response structure, and then you can share that whole collection to anybody. And then they can actually see how your app is actually looking like. Don't worry, we'll help you with that. Okay. In your travel time, make sure that you revise all your lectures. Dhruv, until unless you have to drive. If you're driving, maybe take a metro or something. I would recommend. Utilize your travel time well. And make sure that your public holidays or sick leaves are utilized well. Celebrate करने का time बाद में भी आ जाएगा. So utilize your sick leaves well. In your, make sure whatever office work you have, complete that office work within your office. Don't bring it outside of office. Utilize your weekends well. Okay. Try to be smart. Try to keep on moving. Don't be stuck on a particular topic. That's how you can actually do it, I believe. Okay, cool. Now let's come back. And now we are going to discuss about a few interesting things here and there. Okay. So now if you carefully remember, we have this passenger has many bookings, right? Can I say that? And for the driver as well, you can have driver has many bookings as well. Okay, cool. Let's start talking about a few things. Now, let's say if you carefully remember, what we can actually do is we can actually prepare a repository, call it as driver repository. Okay, let's make it an interface. And what we'll do is we'll extend this interface from JPA repository where we will call the entity as driver and the primary key as long. The moment you do that, a bunch of queries will be available to you. Can I say that? Okay. Cool. Now let's do an interesting thing. Let's do an interesting thing. Import class. Okay. Now let's do an interesting thing. I will come to my review service here. Okay. I'll comment out all of these things. Now what I can do is I can say, let's say list of drivers is equals to, we can use a driver repository. The moment I do driver repository, it will automatically do the injection here. Dot find all. Okay, we do the driver repository dot find all. What I want to see is, I want to see that what query does it execute? Okay, when we do driver dot find all, because ideally what it should do, select star from drivers, kind of like that. But let's see what happens. If I run this code, can you see what's going on? It says ID created at license number name updated at from driver. Can I say that? So it's getting all of the details of the driver. But how can we get details of the bookings? How can we get details of the booking of a driver? Right? We don't have detail of a booking of a driver, right? So when we are getting the drivers, there are two things. Maybe we want to have the bookings also fetched, right? Or maybe we do not want the bookings to be fetched as of now, right? There can be two scenarios, that when I'm fetching the details of a driver, I immediately want the booking details also, or maybe I do not want the booking details immediately. There can be two situations. Can I say that? Everyone? Can I say that? Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's go to our MySQL table. Okay. Let's go to our MySQL table. Okay. Or yeah, let's have it like this. Or maybe we can just use IntelliJ to make a bunch of queries. Okay. So now you can say, you can go to the DB, you can go to the table, for example, driver table. Okay. And what you can do is you can make a new query. You can say insert into driver. Okay. What are the columns of a driver? You can see there is a license number and a name. So I'll say created at, updated at, license number and name. Okay. All of these properties we are going to send. Then we'll say values. You can see writing query in IntelliJ is also pretty fast. Values. And then you can say created at as now, updated at as now, license number as, let's say, DL121212. Okay. And name as ABCD. Okay. That's the set of values that you want to have. Okay. Cool. We can put a query here. Let's see why it's throwing an error. Choose schema. Uber DB local. Okay, cool. And let's try to execute this query. Once again, it says you have error in the SQL syntax. Let's see why. Insert into driver created at, updated at, license number and name. Let's see. Copy. Let's try to execute it here. Uber DB local. So I'll say use Uber DB local. Okay. And if I execute this query, okay, this query is good here. I'm not sure why this is throwing an error here. Probably just a second. Copy. Okay. Maybe here the text should be single quotes. Yep, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, here the text should be single quotes. So strange console, but okay. So let's add one more driver. Okay. GHIJ. And if I execute it, one second. If I execute it, let's clear the console. Okay, it says duplicate entry. So entry has been created. If now I do, let's say, if let's say now I do select star from driver. If I execute this query and run it, you can see now we have two drivers available. Okay, this is looking good. Now let's create a passenger as well. Okay, so I'll say insert into passenger, created at updated at name, values, now, and let's give the passenger name as XYZ. Again, same problem, single quote XYZ. Okay, let's add a passenger as well. Looks good. So passenger has been added as well. Now we can say insert into booking, created at updated at booking status, end time, start time. All of these properties we will add. Values, and let's go to the new line. Okay, so created at and updated at should be now. Okay, booking status we can keep as in cab, right, or in ride. What was the status we kept? What was the enum for the status? Booking status. Let's say scheduled. Let's take scheduled. Okay, cool. End time we can say now. Start time we can say now. Just dummy data. Total distance, let's say I'll just say 3. Okay, driver ID. Now we want a driver ID. Let's say 1. We want a review ID. Review ID we can skip because review is not a mandatory parameter. Review can be null. And passenger ID we want. This can be 1. Okay, let's execute it. So we have one booking here. And looks like this executed. If I do select star from booking and execute this query, you can see I have one booking. Looks good. Now let's do one thing. Let's create one more passenger. Let's create one more passenger. Okay. And then create one more booking of the same driver, but with this new passenger. Okay. Cool. And now let's see the booking. You can see there are 2 bookings now. So now our data is ready. Now let's do one thing. Let's say I will change the query like this. I will say driver is equals to driver repository dot find by ID, and let's say driver ID 1L. Okay, and again, what's this? This can be actually optional. Okay, so we'll change it to optional driver, and we'll say yeah, let's just say something like this. Let's see what query it is executing first of all. If I run it, you can see it's fetching the details of the driver with ID this. Okay, looks good. Now, let's say I want to say that if driver dot is present, then what do I want to do? I want to say driver dot, let's say, now let's do one thing. In the driver repository, let's write a method. What will be the method? So the method that we are going to write is we'll get a list of bookings. We'll get a list of booking. Now, what do I want is, I want to make sure that there is a method using which I can get all the bookings of a particular driver. Okay. So now you can say something like this. Let's close it up here. Now IntelliJ automatically will give you some recommendations. You can say something like find all once again. So this will be find all let's call it as driver underscore booking. Okay. And let's say we are going to get a driver ID. So let's say, or let's do one thing. Let's say find by ID. Find by one second. So let's say find by, and we'll keep ID, find by ID. See, the moment I do find by, can you see it is giving me all the recommendation that what all I can use to find it. For example, I want to find it by ID, okay, and bookings. Okay. So if you want to find by ID and booking ID, something like that, you can actually do it. Or let's say you want to find it by, for example, ID. One second. You want to find it by ID and let's say license number. So what it will do, if you will use find by ID and license number, then it will execute a query, select star from driver where ID is equals to this and license number is equals to this, right? So let me in fact actually show you. So first of all, instead of booking, let's make it a driver. Let's make it a driver. Okay. And here you want to have find by ID. So you can pass a long ID and a string license number. Okay. You can see I have defined this method. I have not given the definition of this method. Okay. Now what you can actually do is you can come to the review service. Instead of doing find by ID, you can say driver repository dot find by ID and license number. Okay. Find by ID and license number. Let's say if I do select star from driver, let's take the license number from here. Okay. So the ID is 1L and the license number is this. Okay. Cool. Let's see why it's throwing an error. Okay. It should not give you a list of driver. It should give you just a driver. This will give you one single driver, right? Okay. Cool. So here it is going to give you a single driver altogether. Okay. And now you can actually remove it. Cool. Now, ideally, we should have our method not returning us a driver, but instead an optional of a driver, because maybe what the user is sending us, it's not available, right? The ID that the user sent is actually not available as a driver. So this should be an optional, right? So we'll make it an optional of driver. Here also in that case, now we have to make an optional of driver. So let's say if the driver is present, what we are going to do is we will say system.out.println driver get name. Okay. Why driver get? Because it's an optional. Okay. It's an optional, right? It's an optional. So in that case, you will only want to check this condition if the driver is already existing, right? Now let's execute this code. Let's execute this code and let's see what query it is executing. Now you can see what is the query. Select all of these property from driver where ID is equals to this and license number is equals to this. And can you see what is the name that we are getting? ABCD. What was the name of the driver? ABCD. Can I say that? So now we didn't write any query. What we did is we used Spring Data JPA. Now what Spring Data JPA says that Spring Data JPA will give you some default set of functions already. Now on the top of it, if you want to make some slightly more complex queries, you can actually define methods like these, find by, and then give properties, ID and license number. This will then actually convert to what? Select star from driver where ID is equals to this and license number is equals to this. Okay. Now, this function is not by default present. This function is not by default present. For example, if I comment it out and close the server, and if you go to review service, can you see now it is throwing an error? This function is not by default present, right? This is not by default present. By default, there are functions like find by ID, find all, delete by ID, so on and so forth. But on the top of those default functions that JPA repository is giving you, you can actually define some of your own functions, like find by ID and license number, something like this. Okay. And all you have to do is just define the signature. Now, Spring Data JPA is smart enough to understand simple signatures like this. For example, you can do something more. So let's say you can say, find, or let's write it like this. Let's say optional of driver. Okay. One second. Driver. Then you can see the moment you write find, it will start giving you recommendations. If you do delete, it will start giving you recommendations. If you'll say update, it will start giving you recommendation. If you'll say read, it will start giving you recommendations. So you can say find, and now you can say find distinct, find first. Find first will do what? It will apply limit. It will apply limit. Okay. So you can say, let's say find by. Now you can see other properties are coming up. You can find by booking creation date. You can find by booking between. You can find by booking containing, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, let's say we say find by ID. And now, what you have to do is you want to find by ID, but you also want to find all the bookings of the driver. Now, just think about it. If I have to write a raw query where I have a driver table and I have a booking table, and I want to fetch all the bookings of the driver along with the driver details, how can I actually do this? Anyone? How can I actually do this? Very good. Anybody else? Very good, Rajat. Anybody else? Yes. So if I want to make sure that I have a driver table, I have a booking table, a driver has many bookings, that means the booking table has a driver ID attribute. So in that case, there should be a join that should ideally come up into the picture, right? We need to join our driver table with the corresponding booking table, right? Yes or no, guys? Okay. Now, how can we do joins here now? How can we do joins here? One way is to write a raw query. I'll show you how you can write a raw query. Any other way? Any other way? Okay. So what you can actually do is, if I go to documentation of Spring Data JPA, Spring Data JPA join queries function. Okay. And if I actually show you, this is the for raw query. Let's not go for raw query. Or let's just go to Spring Data JPA queries. Okay. Can we not get official documentation? Spring Data JPA. Let's go to the official docs of Spring Data JPA. There is some really good documentation that they have given. Okay, so this is Spring Data JPA. If you go to learn, API doc, I guess. Okay, not API doc, reference doc. Okay. Now, if you go to JPA, and here, if you go to defining query methods, okay, can you see there is a dedicated article on query creation? So if you'll go to the official documentation of Spring Data JPA on this particular URL around query methods, they will actually show you what are the different type of queries you can actually write. For example, let's say there is a person repository. So you can find a person by email address and last name. So you can say find by email address and last name. it will automatically prepare a corresponding query for you. You can say find by last name, ignore case. Find by last name and first name, all ignore case. Find by last name, order by first name ascending. Can you see? So what will be the query that will be present here? Select star from person where last name is equals to this, order by first name ascending. These kind of queries, these kind of simple queries, it can automatically prepare for you. Okay. Right. Now you can see, assume a person has an address with a zip code. Okay. And let's see. If I go beyond, this is, you can see, limit and query, find by last name and find top 10 by last name. If you do top 10 by last name, it will automatically do limit 10. Find first 10 by last name. First 10 means the offset will be set as 0. Query first 10 by last name. These kind of simple functions you can directly actually present. Can I say that? Right? Okay. Now let's come back to this address one. So, and in fact, let's see. If I go here, you can see. Now, if you go to the JPA query methods tab, it will also tell you what are the operators you have available. Distinct, and, or, is equal. All of these are already available. So for example, if you want to do find age, find by age, order by last name, something like this. Okay. If you want to have distinct, you can have distinct as well. Okay. You can in fact execute raw queries as well. I'll show you how you can execute raw queries, but let's see. Spring data JPA join query methods. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Or one second. What we can actually do is one second. Let's come up here. And now let's say we go to the booking repository. Let's say we go to the booking repository. Okay. That's where we can do some stuff. Now in the booking repository, what you can do is you can get a list of booking. You can get a list of booking, right? You can get a list of booking and you can name the function as find all by driver. Find all by driver. So all the bookings of a particular driver you can find and you can pass long driver ID. The moment you have it. Now let's go to our review service. Okay. Now here what you can do is after we fetch the name, we can say, for example, list of booking as bookings is equals to booking repository dot find all by driver. And here we can pass the driver ID. What's the driver ID that we have? We can say 1L. Okay, 1L. And let's print all of these bookings, for example. So we'll say for booking in bookings, you can say system dot out dot print, and we can say this should be bookings. Okay, we should say booking dot, let's say get booking status. Okay, we'll get the booking status of all the bookings. Now if you run the code, let's see what is the query that we are going to execute. One second, there is an error. Let's just quickly check what's the error. Error creating bean name with booking repository. Just a second. Booking repository. We have a booking repository here. We have a booking repository here. Find all by driver. Oh, okay. So I guess we have to not give it by driver. We should give it like by driver ID. We should name the function as find by all driver ID. If you will say find by driver, then in the argument, it will start expecting a driver object instead of the driver ID. Okay. So we'll say find all by driver ID. And if you go to the review service, let's change it here. Let's make it find all by driver ID. Now let's execute it. So IntelliJ will automatically show you warnings and everything, whatever is required in order to write these queries. Okay. Let's see. And you can see now it is executing. And this time, let's see what is the query it is executing. Can you carefully see that it is trying to do a booking left join driver? So now it is automatically doing all the joining automatically for you. Can I say that? Right? And you can see what all details it is getting you. It is getting you the details of the booking and also correspondingly to the booking details of the driver. Can I say that? Like you are getting the corresponding driver ID as well. Yes or no? Right? And you can see it is putting the on value on driver ID and this. As simple as that. So you can see Spring Data JPA can actually help you to write some simple manual queries. But in that case, you don't have to write the implementation. All you have to do is just figure out the right way of writing this function. That what do you want to do? You want to find by what particular properties, and then you can just call this particular method with the corresponding arguments, and it will automatically generate queries for you. How many of you guys are able to get this much? Let's now stop here and see how many of you are able to get this much point. Everyone. Okay, cool. Now, interestingly, we have one more concept. We have one more concept here. So there is a concept called as fetch mode. Fetch mode in Spring Data JPA. What is fetch mode? So there are two ways in which you can actually fetch the data. One is lazy, one is eager. Okay. For example, when we are fetching the driver, if you carefully see, when we are fetching the driver, then it is just giving me the driver details. It is not giving me the booking details. For example, if I do find by ID, it is just giving me the driver details. It is not giving me the booking details. Why? Because here the fetch mode is lazy. Lazy means when you're going to get, or like I would say, fetch the details of the driver model, maybe you do not immediately need the bookings. Maybe driver has 1 lakh bookings and I just want to show the basic profile page of the driver. So what is the need of actually fetching all the bookings of the driver immediately at that point of time, right? Don't you think? For example, let's say it's a Twitter application. There is a user model. User has many posts. Now, if you fetch the user details, don't you think user can have 1 lakh posts? What is the need of fetching all the set of posts immediately by the user also? Maybe if you want to fetch the user, just get the user details and you can separately fetch the tweet details or the post details. That's what we call as lazy mode. And the other mode is called as eager mode. So you can see. So you can define a fetch mode, right? So let me show you. If I do fetch mode as eager, okay. And or let's do it like this. Fetch mode eager in Spring Data JPA. Okay. So you can see there are two modes, eager fetching and lazy fetching. Lazy means if there is a relationship, one-to-many relationship, for example, then you don't need to fetch the data of the relationship immediately. Maybe you do not need it, right? Otherwise, maybe you can actually fetch it eagerly. So let's try it out. So you can say, apart from this mapped by property, you can give a property fetch and you can say fetch type as eager. Now let's try to see what happens if you do fetch type as eager. If you carefully see inside our review service, I'm trying to fetch the details of a driver, right? Now let's stop this part where we are actually calling the booking repository. All I'm doing is I'm trying to find a driver and let's say find driver repository dot find by ID, and I will only pass the ID. Okay. I will only pass the ID. Let's see what happens. If I run the code, oh, sorry, my bad. If I run the code now, now can you see? It is actually, let me copy this query. Let me copy this query here and maybe open Sublime in front of you. Okay. Can you see? This is the query now that it is executing. What is happening inside this query? What is happening inside this query? So if you carefully see, there is a join that is happening between the driver, the passenger, and the corresponding booking. Can I say that? I just wanted the detail of a driver. I just wanted the detail of a driver. What this has done for us, is it has not only just fetched the details of the driver, but it has also eager means immediately when we are fetching the details of the driver, immediately it is fetching us the details of the booking and not just basic booking details. Now booking has a passenger associated to it. So there is a join with passengers also going on. So okay, you can see. So this is all going on here. And if I search for join, you can see there is one left join that is going on booking. Then there's a left join going on passengers. And then one join going on booking review as well. So booking has passenger, driver, and booking review. So when we are fetching the driver, it is fetching me the booking review also, driver details also, passenger details also, and the remaining booking details also. This is called as eager loading or eager fetching. The other mode, that is the default mode for one-to-many relationship, is called as lazy fetching. If I make it lazy and I execute the same to same code in front of you, now you can see it's a simple select query from the driver table. As simple as that, right? So these two modes are kind of like useful in case there is a model where you know that, okay, when we are going to fetch the booking, immediately we need to fetch the booking review also. Then you can use fetch mode as eager. But when we are fetching the driver details, immediately we do not want the booking details. In that case, what you can do is you can keep the fetch mode as lazy. So what you can do is you can go to the booking model. You can go to the corresponding booking model. And here, what you have is, you can see you have a review, right? You have a corresponding review available with us, right? Now for one-to-one relationship, you can see this is a one-to-one relationship, right? In one-to-one relationship, the default fetch mode is already eager. Okay, so let me write it in front of you. What are the default fetch modes? For a one-to-one relationship, the default fetch mode is eager. Whereas for a one-to-many relationship, the default fetch mode is lazy. For a many-to-many relationship also, the default fetch mode is lazy. But for a many-to-one relationship, the default fetch mode is eager. This is something that you have to keep in mind, right? This is something that you have to keep in mind, that now because booking and booking review have a one-to-one relationship, you don't need to specifically mention fetch type. When you're going to fetch a review, it is automatically going to fetch a booking review also immediately for you. Let's even try it out. So if I go to review service here, let's say if I do booking B is equals to booking repository dot find by ID, and let's say I pass ID as 1L, and this is going to return an optional probably. Yes, it returns an optional. If now I execute this code, let's see what is the query that we are executing. Now, first query, you can see it's a simple driver query, but the second query is interesting. If you copy the whole second query. You can already see it's a pretty long one. That means probably some joins and everything are going on. So we copy this and we paste it here. Now, can you see there is a lot of joins going on? There's a lot of joins going on. And one of the join is going on the booking review. Can I say that? Why? Because if you go to the booking model, the booking review is a one-to-many relationship. One-to-many relationship is a eager loading fetch type. Apart from that, driver is a many-to-one relationship. And what is the default mode for many-to-one? Default mode for many-to-one is eager loading. That's why there is a driver join also going on. Can you see? There is a driver join also here going on. Can you see this? And passenger is also many-to-one. So you can see there is a, if I go here, passenger join also going on. Can you see there's a passenger join also going on? And now inside the passenger, if you go inside the passenger, and one second. And you can see now passenger review is what? Passenger review is a child class of review, and review is a eager loading for booking. So passenger review is also an eager loading for booking. That's why you're also loading passenger reviews here. Right? So the moment you have a one-to-one or a many-to-one relationship, it's eager loading. If you have one-to-many and many-to-many, it's a lazy loading default mode. At any point of time, you can change the fetch modes. For example, here you can say fetch is equals to fetch type.lazy. The moment you do fetch type.lazy, let's see what is the query that will execute it for booking. Now this is the query. Copy. And let's paste the third query. Now, can you see it's already shorter? And there is no join on the reviews. Can you see there is no join on the review? The only join that is present is on the passenger, and only join that is present is on the driver. Why? Because passengers and drivers are still many-to-one, which has a default eager loading mode. So you can think about it. When you are fetching the details of a particular data, what all data pointers you immediately need? If you immediately need and the default mode is not eager, make it eager. If you don't immediately need it, make it lazy, so on and so forth. Are you guys able to get this point? How eager loading and lazy loading going to work? Let's say in a Quora-like application, if you have a question, you want to eagerly load all the answers for that question, but you don't want to eagerly load the comments on the answer. Can I say that? When I open a particular answer in detail, then you can maybe load the comment for that particular answer. Are you able to get this point? Is this point making sense, guys? Any questions regarding the queries? Yes. First, we already talked about it, right? Spring Data JPA is a layer on top of Hibernate. Hibernate is already independent of all of these, right? Like, for example, if you will use MongoDB, then the only thing that you have to do is instead of JPA repository, you create Mongo repository. Then it will give you Mongo related functions. Sure, Rachel. So Rachel, just think about it. In the booking model, review is one-to-one. What is the default mode for one-to-one, Rachel? What is the default mode? Eager. And passenger review is a child class of review. So when you are fetching review, and because passenger is a child class of review, passenger review will also become an eager loading for booking. Are you able to get this point? Is lazy loading will load the data after some time or in future, or just to avoid gen? No, it's not going to like automatically load it. It will be now dependent on you. When do you want to load it? Okay, so you can read about it. You can actually read about it. if I close Sublime and if you go for lazy loading fetch mode, Spring Data JPA, eager slash lazy loading. Okay. And now you can see, or let's just see with Spring Data JPA with medium. Let's get a medium article altogether. Okay. Let's go here. And you can see. So for example, you can see you have made a fetch type as eager. Okay. And okay, they have not given the lazy example. Okay. Here you can check. So Command F, lazy. Here you can see. So let's say fetch type is lazy, right? And this is student profile. Okay. Now let's see where are they making the queries. Now you can see they made a student profile repository. If you do a user repository dot get one, then you are only getting the user details. Okay. Now, what you can actually do is you can separately do a student profile repository dot get one. Then student profile repository will be separately fetched. Can I say that? Okay. And now you can see here. Okay. If you want to get a student profile dot get city, you have to separately load up that. Are you able to get this point? Is this point making sense, guys? So it's not like it will automatically load it. You have to do things manually there as well. Any questions, anyone? Yes, basic functions are kind of same. Find all and everything. Custom. Any questions, guys? So don't you think like doing queries in Spring Data JPA is very, very easy? And it's not like Spring Data JPA is the only framework that does this. It's kind of like all the major frameworks that you see, Django, Ruby on Rails, they all do this kind of stuff that they provide a basic set of functions by default automatically, right? And then you can write a few more functions on the top of it. Are you able to get this point? Okay. Now, one interesting thing that you can see is that, let's say if you have the driver booking fetch mode as lazy, you can see booking fetch mode is lazy, right? Now, what you can actually do is if you go to this and let's say you have the driver details. Now, what you can actually do is you can say driver dot get dot. Now you can say get bookings. Now, can you see what is happening? Now, from the driver, I can actually get the bookings. I have the driver, but when we load the driver, it's a lazy loading mode. So we immediately do not get the bookings, but later we can get the bookings. Okay. So if I now execute this code, let's see what happens. I guess we have not stored the result somewhere. That's why it's not executing the query. So let's store the result. So list of booking B is equals to driver.get bookings. Okay, cool. Now let's execute it once more. And okay, it's not separately showing us the query executed, but let's see what are the bookings we are getting. So if I put a for loop here, booking in B, okay, and let's say booking dot get ID. Let's see if we are able to get all the booking IDs or not. If I run the code. Okay, it throws us an error. Let's see. Da, da, da. Let's check. Could not initialize proxy, no session. Okay. Let's see why this error is coming up. Could not initialize proxy, no session, Spring Boot. If you would keep the lazy load in Spring Boot, just add the config below. Okay, so we have to add this configuration if you want to make sure that lazy loading separately also works. So this configuration we have to separately add. Again, you don't need to remember it. It's just a Google search away. So you can just come to lazy application.properties and you can add Spring Data JPA Hibernate enable lazy loading. So you can now enable lazy loading without any transaction being into the picture. And now if you execute the code again, this time it should work. That's why it was, I guess, not executing the query also. And now you can see this time it is separately making the queries here. Right? You can see it's now separately making the corresponding query altogether. Right? And let's make it a println so that we can see it in a new line. Let's see if we are able to get the data in the new line. Let's run it again. You can see we are getting 1, 2. These are the both the booking details, right? And all this happens by adding this particular property. To enable lazy loading in Spring Data JPA. Okay. So this is one configuration that you have to put so that now lazy loading comes into the picture. And you can see it's pretty easy, right? Once you have the driver, you can say driver.getBookings. As simple as that. Right? So when you have the driver loaded, when this driver object has been created, then you do not have the bookings. Let's say after some time you have done some computation. After some time you need the booking details. You can say driver.getBookings. As simple as that. Make sense, everyone? Is this point making sense? That how you can actually do the queries and everything? Now you can see lazy loading also being into the picture. Eager loading, so we saw there were 3 queries, very fat queries. But now when we have lazy loading, just load the driver. When you want the bookings, you get the bookings. Make sense? Any questions, guys? Any questions? Okay. Now, you might be thinking that, okay, writing queries like this is cool, but things can become very complex once we have, let's say, 30, 40 tables altogether. When you have too many tables and you have a very big kind of joins going on, the recommended way to go for is by not using these functions. Instead, use queries. Now, there are 2 types of queries that you can execute. One is a raw query and one is called as Hibernate queries. Let me first of all show you a raw query. So let's say if I go to driver repository, the same thing that is going on here, what I'll do is I'll say optional of driver. And now you can write any name. You can write any name. I'll say raw find by ID and license number. Okay. I'll write a raw query. Now, how do you write a raw query? So inside your repository interface, you have an annotation called as @query. Inside that @query, there is a property called as native query. When you do native query is equals to true, now what you can actually do is you can actually pass raw MySQL query. So you can say now value, and now you can say select star from driver, select star from driver, where ID is equals to, now generally what do you say? Select star from driver where ID is equals to 1 and license number is equals to this. Now we will be getting it in the form of a variable. So here I will say long ID and let's say string license. So how do you mention these variables here? You mention these variables as colon ID and what is the other property name inside driver? If I say describe driver, so this is license number, right? Command C, and this is going to be license number equals to license. You can see this is the raw query that we are going to execute. Okay, this is the raw query that we are going to execute. Let's try it out first and see if it is working for us or not. So this is the method name raw find by ID and this. Okay, so I'll comment out everything and I will say optional driver D is equals to driver repository dot raw find by ID and license number. So the ID is 1L and the license number that we have here is this. Let's see now what happens. If I run the code, oh my bad, there is a compile time issue. This should be driver. Now let's run it again. And now can you see it is executing select star from driver where ID is equals to something and license number is equals to something. And let's say we have the driver. So we will say d dot get name. Okay. If I, and let's print it out. Let's print it out. So system dot system dot, oh sorry, there is something called as s out, right? System dot out dot println d dot get name. Okay, let's execute it now. If I run the code, you can see what's the driver name coming up as ABCD. Okay, and what is the driver name? ABCD altogether. So now what is happening? You are able to execute raw MySQL query. It's a raw MySQL query altogether. Okay. Cancel. Okay. There is a small warning that is coming up. This is to select dialect. Like by default, it is not able to understand what is the default dialect, and it is selecting the default dialect as a generic SQL. What you can do is you can call it as MySQL here. Click on OK, and then IntelliJ will automatically identify that okay, this is a MySQL query that you have. So this is how you can write MySQL query. But there is a problem with MySQL query. What is the problem with MySQL query? For example, if I say, or once again, now let's do something like this. So let's say if I make one more function, optional driver raw find by ID and name. Okay, let's say we say find by ID and name. So long ID string name. Okay, this is an interface method that we need. Now the other way to actually handle it is going to be using something called as hibernate queries. What is an hibernate query? Now if you don't pass the native query as true, if you don't pass this native query as true, then if you write a query here directly, this is going to be a hibernate query. You can say select star from driver where ID is equals to colon ID and license number is equals to, sorry, not license number. So let's call it as license number only. That's license. Okay. So we'll say license number is equals to, let's say ln. Okay. The variable name I'm keeping as ln. Okay. Now see what is happening here. Do you see a difference in this particular query and this particular query? Both of the queries are going to do the same thing. But interestingly, if you carefully see this license number property is in a camel case. And if you go to driver, the license number here is in a camel case indeed. If you will try to make this as underscore license underscore number, you can see then also it's not throwing much of an error. But if you make a license number here, something like this, can you see this is going to throw an error? Now, what is the difference? In raw MySQL query, you have to give the column name as it is. Whatever is the actual column name, you have to give the same column name as it is. Now, if I comment it out and if I run the code, then you will see one interesting thing. This is not coming as a compile time issue. How? Let's see. If I just comment out, so you can see I'm not calling any query. If I just run the code, can you see? The code is working fine. What does that mean? That means any error in this raw MySQL query is not detected at compile time. During runtime, when I will call this function and it will make this SQL query and SQL will throw us an error, then this will throw us a runtime error. What we see here as a red underline is because of IntelliJ. IntelliJ is giving us this error altogether, but actually Spring Boot cannot detect this as an error. So raw MySQL queries, if they have an error, those errors are not detected at compile time. That actually becomes a problem for us. Why? Because now you have to manually test all the queries. Your syntactical query issues cannot be automatically detected. You have to manually test the query, then only you'll be able to detect the syntactical issue. And to resolve this kind of thing, only, we have something called as a Hibernate query language. Hibernate query language is different than your raw MySQL or your raw DB queries. Why? Because now, can you see it is not able to identify this star. If I run this code, and you can see I have not even called this function also. I have not called any function. My whole review service is all empty. Now, if I execute this code, can you see it is throwing us an error? This error is being thrown at compile time. Can I say that? So this is a raw MySQL query. And error is thrown at runtime if query has issue. Whereas this is a Hibernate query. It is a Hibernate query. Error is thrown at compile time only. So now during compile time only, we will be able to get the corresponding errors altogether. And that can lead to a better checking and a better robustness inside our application. Now, why this is saying select star? Now you can say select, let's say something like this. And let's call it as license number as ln. Okay. If now you run the code, I believe we should do select driver from driver. And you can see everything is all good to go, right? So in Hibernate query language, the query language is slightly different from your raw MySQL query. For example, you cannot do select star like this. You can just say select driver and it will take all the columns. We can actually even check. For example, now let's copy this method name. Instead of calling it as raw, let's call it as HQL, Hibernate query language, find by ID and license. We go to review service and we say find by this and this. And now let's execute the code. Once again, this is throwing us an error. Let's just quickly check. I guess what we have to do is probably we have to do something like this. let's just quickly check the syntax. Hibernate query language, select syntax. Okay. Instead of star, what do they have? Okay, this is what you can do. Select this from this. Okay. So you can say, you can call it as driver as D, and you can say select D dot ID, comma, D dot name, comma, D dot created at. Okay. From driver D, where, let's see. If you go here, or maybe we can do something like this. Where clause. Okay, where clause. So you can do something like this. Select this from username and password. Okay. So you can say driver as D and D dot ID is equals to ID and D dot license number as LN. Now, if you execute the code, okay, so we have a error again. We have an error again. Let's see why this is throwing us an error. Okay, so now what is the error? It is not able to convert a Java object to a corresponding driver. Why? Because we are returning a driver object and we have just fetched the ID, name, and created at. Can I say that? Actually, if you want to get a driver object, you need to have everything set already, right? You need to have everything set already. Yes or no? But what we are setting, we are only getting the ID, we are only getting the name, we are only getting the updated at. Can I say that? Okay. Everyone, are you able to get this point? Why we are now getting an error? D dot, so this actually expects us to put an alias, and then with respect to that alias, you can say D dot ID, D dot name, D dot created at, so on and so forth. Are you able to get this point? So how can we resolve this issue? Anyone? Now, if you carefully see, now one interesting fact that you will see is that this is a raw MySQL query. From your raw MySQL query, you are fetching a lot of details. Now, from the start, you could have got a lot of things. Now, getting that object from MySQL and converting that to driver, all of this is automatically done by Spring Data JPA. Can I say that? Everyone? Yes or no? Is that one making sense? Okay. And here also, whatever object we are going to give, the conversion of that object to the return type, it will be automatically done by Spring Data JPA. Okay. So now what you can do is, let's say if you try to do something like this, select D from driver, where D.ID is this, D.license number is this. Let's try to execute this query and see what happens. So, and again, Hibernate query language is a new language in itself. It has its own set of syntax. It has its own set of rules and everything. And now can you see everything is all good? We are able to fetch the driver. And what is the query that has been created? Select D1.ID, D1.created at, D1.license number, D1.name, D1.updated at from driver, where this is license number. So instead of doing select star, what you can do is you can give driver an alias, and then you can just put that alias. Star will not work here. Star will not work here. This will be a compile time issue. You have to do select D from this. And because of the compile time capability, because of the fact that this has a compile time capability, using Hibernate query language is recommended on the top of using raw MySQL queries. Of course, if you are not comfortable with Hibernate query language, you can actually use raw MySQL queries. But again, then you have to manually test them. But what I believe is nowadays in the world of AI, you don't have to worry a lot. For example, you can just go to GPT. You can just go to GPT, or maybe you can go to Gemini also, whatever access you have. And you can say, convert this MySQL query to Hibernate query to be passed in the @ query annotation. @ query annotation. And we can give the query. And the same question you can even ask with Gemini. Copy, paste. Same question you can ask with Gemini. And let's see. So you can see Gemini has already converted this. And can you say this was the same query that I wrote? Select D from driver D, where D.id. The as is like driver as D is optional. You can even avoid as. You can write as. I was writing as because in raw SQL also, if you have to give aliases, you have an option of as. So that's why I wrote it. And you can see you can see GPT has also written it. You can do something like this. You can also say from driver. You can do this. Instead of saying select, you can just do from driver also. Let's try it out. So if I say, instead of select D, I just say from driver. If I say from driver D, where D.id is equals to this, and let's call it as D. Okay. Now I have removed the select altogether. If I run the code now, can you see? Still, we are getting the same response. So you can avoid select altogether by just saying from this, right? And you can just use these AI tools to convert your raw MySQL queries to Hibernate query language. Okay, there must be some cheat sheet for Hibernate query language. There must be some cheat sheet. Okay. Let's see. Hibernate query language. And you can see, you can find from clause, select clause, where clause, and you can just quickly go through this, and this should technically be good to go for you, right? I'll talk about later sessions and everything. But now you can see, in order to fetch the data, now you have three ways. One, you can use these kind of functions for simpler queries. If you have very complex joins and everything, you can use a raw MySQL query. But this will be not checked on the compile time. Only on runtime, if an issue comes up, this will come up. Apart from that, you have a Hibernate query language that is also checkable during compile time. So I'll just push all of this. Added raw and Hibernate query language queries. There we go. Make sense, everyone? So let's say we want only 2 columns to reduce redundant data. Then we need to create a new object. Yes, that's the, of course, custom. Like, for example, I can just quickly do that for you. So let's say, like, that is what we will call as like DTOs and DAOs and everything later. But let's say I create a custom driver class where, let's say, I only have a long ID and let's say string name. Okay. And let's say this is going to return a custom driver. Okay. Let's say I want this to return a custom driver. And if I close this, if you go to review service, let's say we are going to have a custom driver. Okay. Let's remove this for now. And now if you execute it, let's see what happens. Yeah, Pawan, I'm showing you that only. Once again. No converter found. Okay, I guess we need getter setters. So @getter @setter. Okay, so getter setters we have added. Now let's run it again. Still the same issue. Okay, so it's not able to convert driver to custom driver. Just a second. Let's see. Let's just quickly Google it. Return custom object from Hibernate query language Spring Boot. There must be something. You can use object as a return type, that is of course, but now then in that case, object can be anything, right? So let's see if they have a better way to get it. Okay, so they're asking us to actually implement an interface altogether. Okay. So you can see this. Okay. Oh, my bad. I guess we were not having any constructors and everything also, right? So let's add a builder. Let's add a no arcs constructor, add a all arcs constructor. Let's see, do we need anything else? I guess this should work now. Okay, but I guess it won't be able to identify how to map ID with ID and name with name, right? Yeah, that must be a problem. So let's see how do they solve it. Okay. Yeah, you can have a wildcard operator. Okay, that's a smart one. But okay, you can see you can write a query like this. New this. Okay, so let's try to write it like this. So again, Hibernate query language. So you can say select new custom driver as d.id comma d.name. Okay, let's see. And let's get the custom driver. One second. I guess we have to give the whole path. We have to give the whole path of custom driver. Let's give the whole path, copy, paste. Okay, you can see I've given the whole path of custom driver. Now if I will execute it, let's see what happens. So you can just Google it, these kind of things. I believe this should be doable. Okay, still an issue. Let's see what's the error now. Okay, same issue. Let's read the error here. Okay, so it's not able to. Let's see any other way that they are recommending. So you say value is equals to this, select new this from this s dot answer. Okay. Okay, so there is something called as projection. Let's see how can we have projections. Da-da-da. Okay, I believe that way. Once again, there was one way in which it was recommending us to give interfaces, right? I believe we might have to create an interface altogether. Okay, so let's do one thing. Instead of a custom driver like this, let's have an interface. Okay, let's have an interface and we will say get ID and string get name. Okay, let's have this interface and let's return this interface altogether. Now I can just say from driver. I can just say from driver. Let's try it out now. Yeah, this one works. This one works. And if you go to the review service and we can say d dot get name. Okay, let's try it out now. You can see instead of a class, we can make an interface. That is one way. And you can see we are getting the name as ABCD. Make sense? Okay. And I believe one more way should be to have this as a wildcard. So let's say instead of interface, now let's go back to a class. Let's go back to a class. And what if we use a wildcard here? If I run this code, okay, this has an issue. Okay, now then we have to define a type here. But what I believe is this class-based syntax should also work. Let's bring all the constructors and everything. I believe this syntax should also work. I'm not sure why this is not working. Custom driver d.id, d.name. And we have two properties, right? ID and name. Oh, my bad. My bad. This is not working because we need a custom constructor here. No. Custom driver. We need to have a long ID, string name. This dot ID is equals to ID. This dot name is equals to name. So this will only give us no args constructor and all args constructor, right? So now we do not need these constructors and builders. The getter setter should be more or less good. And in fact, we don't even need that also. Now we have defined our own constructor. Now I'm calling this constructor here. You can see I'm calling this constructor here. Now if you run this code, I believe this should work. Once again, oh sorry, this should be now dot name. And this is what? Private. One second. Oh, so let's make it private and then add getter setters. We need getter setters. If you are going to make it private, add the rate getter, add the rate setter. Now we should be able to do a dot get name, and run it. Okay, still it is having an issue. Did I make some changes here? Custom driver. Okay, let's add the rate no args constructor also. Let's see. Are we missing something? Ideally, this syntax should work. This syntax should work. What we might be missing? We are passing d.id, we are passing d.name. What is that we are missing? Let's see if the constructor is getting called or not. Let's see if the constructor is even getting called or not. Called constructor. Okay, let's see if the constructor is even being called or not. Just a second, guys. Sorry, guys. Okay, so let's see if the constructor is being called or not. Let's go up. Let's go up. Yes, constructor is getting called. That is okay. Why constructor was added? Because here I'm making a constructor call. Can you see new constructor call? But this constructor has not been defined already, right? Can I say that? This constructor is not defined already, right? Because ideally in this case we have like this custom driver is kind of like a DTO class, but I don't want to say DTO and everything to confuse you guys. But let's see, what are we missing? Anybody who is able to identify what we are missing here? Or probably we don't need a optional now, is it? Now we don't need an optional probably here, because now it will definitely create a custom driver, right? We don't need an optional here. Let's try to run it. I believe that might be an issue, but optional is just a wrapper. It should be able to create it. Yeah, optional was just a wrapper. Let's see what is the issue. So it's able to execute a bunch of things. The moment we called the constructor, that's where it failed. Can't we use optional custom drive? We were already doing that. But that was also causing the problem. Because optional is just a wrapper. Okay. What are we missing? Here? Uh, let's quickly check. Mapping a Hibernate query to a custom class. Okay, so we have an article. We don't need to bother a lot. I thought there might not be an article. A custom query result class. They are creating a query. I don't sessions and everything we will talk about, but let's see. So we create a class, that is good. We have getter setters, we have no R constructor, that is good. Then we have a query, select this. You can see they are also doing new, this, and calling the constructor, right? So what might be an issue? I don't think we need a transformer and everything. At the rate query annotation. Because of this is also one way. And which is a pretty straightforward one as well. But we are missing probably something very small. Age as this from person. Okay. How about this? If I do ID as ID, from a name as name. Let's see. Something we are missing. Something is not going right. What can be an issue? So we have all of this. Maybe this has an issue. Let's see. Can you please try custom query? Custom query as in what? The raw query? Okay, let's try with the raw query. So instead of doing select star from driver, what you can do is, let's say we return a custom driver here. And in the review service, let's say we call raw find by ID and license number. This is now optional. And this is get name. If you run this code, let's see. And okay, 1 minute. I guess we missed one part. So here also we have to do, instead of select star, we should do select ID comma name. Okay, select ID comma name. Same issue. There might be some configuration or something that we are missing in that case. Same issue that is coming up here as well. Driver repository. What can be an issue? Okay, maybe I'll check what is an issue separately. Let's not get stuck here. I'll probably check why this is not calling this constructor. This constructor should be ideally called. There is something very small probably that I'm missing somewhere. Okay. Yeah. Spring. Let's also do one thing. We have this interface. We do select new custom driver. Let's see if he is, because you can see compile time issue. There is no compile time issue as such. If I just comment this query, by compile time, logically, this Hibernate query is good. There is no compile time issue here probably, or is there? You can see no compile time issue is there. When we are calling it during the runtime, that's where some issue is coming up, that it is not able to probably pass the ID. And let's see one thing. Let's see one thing. Let's see what is the ID and the name coming up. Let's see that. Okay. Let's see what's the ID and name coming as. So if I go up, you can see ID and name also we are receiving properly. 1 and ABCD, we are receiving it properly. No problem there. But now we get this issue. Okay. So we can just quickly Google this. You can see this query gives converter not found exception. Okay. Okay. Let's see. The interface one though is working. We already saw, right? That interface one approach is already working. So that is okay. Right. That is not a problem. Guys, this interface approach was working. I believe everybody saw that, right? So we have at least one way to solve this, that interface approach that they are also suggesting. Let's see what else. Hmm. Let's see. So we are getting that correct. Okay, so maybe I'll debug it. I'll debug it because we have one way, so at least we are not blocked on this. We have at least one way of having an interface defined. Just define the getters for each and every method, and that should be a more or less good to go thing. You can just say ID comma other ID. So that is one way that we can actually stay stick with. And I'll just debug why this constructor call is not working. Do we need any, probably maybe we need any configuration or something that we might have to set up separately in this application.properties. Okay. But more or less what we now have is we have a Hibernate query language. We have a raw SQL query language. Okay. What I'll do is I'll share you guys a specification doc for your Quora app and Twitter app. Like you can take any one of them. I would recommend you to maybe make a pair with any one of your peers in the course, outside the course, whatever you feel like, and maybe divide the features somehow. If you will sit like 7-8 hours long, that project should be more or less done within 7-8 hours. So it should not take more time than that. You can Google anything you want. What I want is in the next class, we will keep initial 15 to 20 minutes. Next class, that means like next Friday, I'll give it time till next Friday, Saturday. We'll keep initial 15-17 minutes to actually see what you guys have actually made. So I'll ask for your GitHub repositories, and then based on that, we'll try to judge, okay, what could have been the improvements altogether. Does that one make sense? Everyone? Okay, cool. So now we have discussed a lot of things around Hibernate. We have discussed a bunch of things around raw SQL queries. In the next class, what we are going to do, this current review service, probably what we'll try to do is we'll try to actually add a bunch of repository methods, add a bunch of proper models, add a bunch of controller methods, and try to convert this into an end-to-end REST API that can help us to actually create new reviews for a particular set of bookings. Does that one make sense? Does that one make sense, guys? Cool. That being said, let's wrap today's session here, guys. We are going to meet soon in the next set of sessions. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Have a really lovely week ahead and keep coding.